3 or 4 minutes. And yeah, I think I'll do a quick introduction in a minute or two. So we'll wait for everyone to join. If you have a name and topic today, so for those of you who are joining for the first time, we'll have some announcements for the week. This is going to be quite light this time. Then we'll have a quick check-in on the roadmap, on the suggestions pipeline, to see what is currently cooking within the Lightbit ecosystem. And then we'll have the bulk of the discussion around name and topic. Very, very simply, if you have, you definitely have a name, and if you have a topic to discuss as it relates to the Lightbit project, feel free to put it forward. Thank you, Chung. Excited to see the NAP MVP. Yeah, so if you can get your name and topics in, we can create a little schedule, and we will get going in 2 minutes. Quick on the name and topics, Chung and Mike, fantastic to get you in. Awesome. We will get going in 1 minute. I just want to check. My dad, are you ready with the roadmap updates as well? We'll get through that section nice and quickly today. Fantastic. That's what we like. We can get onto name and topic very fast. Okay, I like this. We've got John and Chung twice, which is always great. You can flip a coin as to who goes. Okay, I think it's 5 past, so let's get going. And yeah, any more names and topic, just bung them in the chat. So there are no major announcements this week. I think Chung is giving the readout, and I'm driving a demo. Great. There are no major announcements this week. So if anyone does have some, feel free to chuck them in the chat. On the roadmap front, I'm just going to quickly share my screen. There has been a little bit of movement. Can you see my screen? Awesome. So I think John is going to be talking about Payment Clearinghouse, I see. So excited to hear some updates on that. I'm also going to be talking about funding community engineering initiatives, and both are at this community validation stage where it's really decision time as to whether we move forward with the initiatives. So excited to see where that goes. If I share my screen, my dad, do you want to give a quick update? I see that we've moved into Q2 and now the roadmap is looking a little bit better, but do you want to give a quick update?
The cloud update, their proposal is coming to an end, and also the NAP, which is really look forward to see the outcome. So that's like the two of the items that we were looking forward to see. And on the website side, last week the team gave an update on the website. The website is already live and the team is already working on it. And that's basically everything that I have this week from my side. So next week, we're going to like have more of an update with the new items that are coming.
Awesome. I think this is looking a bit better than it should be, but we did have a Q1 that was all populated beforehand. So yeah, a lot of projects, and maybe we can give a wrap up holistically of everything that was shipped in Q1. Awesome. Thanks Thanks, my dad.
Yeah.
Let's just crack on with name and topic. I think we have quite a few. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We have quite a few things to get through. So I'm very, very excited to hear from Chung and John, who can kick things off talking about NAP MVP. If you want to come up on stage.
Okay. All right. I'll probably take lead to give a brief readout, and then John can use the rest of time to show a quick demo. But everybody can go on and register account to use yourself as well. So this is truly a cross-community effort. After all, APM is involved, and Cloud SP is involved. Foundation is deeply involved as well. And we just shipped the MVP last Friday with commitment only on for user stories and particularly focus on the persona developer and specifically for the scope developer. Okay, so it's live on operator.livepeer.org, and you may want to say, oh, what I can do with it. Today with an MVP, you basically cannot do much about it. You can see the overview of the network performance. You can register the key to get the key of the scope. If you use the scope SDK, you can already start to develop something. But it's still very, very minimal things you can do. So, and we already started preparing for next phase of the work. And John already kicked that off with the payment house. RFC is already kicked off for review last week. And here we'll send a link for, Epic 3, a scope outlining, and invite everybody to go onto the GitHub and give your feedback in terms of, what is coming up. So I think with this Epic 3, you will see where this is may lead to with the foundation we just building in Epic 2. But without further ado, I pass the time to John to show the demo because that is more interesting. Okay.
All right, thanks.
I think we'll give John a minute to grab a. Glass of water.
Like he was choking on something. Are you all right, man?
John, are you with us?
Because we can't hear you if you are.
I think you also muted, John. Your mic is.
Am I coming through now? There we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
Awesome.
John, I'm not going to lie. The coughing made me slightly concerned.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I've had terrible allergies the past week or so, and it's been a lot to deal with.
Fantastic.
Thanks for bearing
I
with
was
me.
worried for a second myself. I just get it right over the finish line, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been
Well,
inside
look,
working on this all spring or what's left of it. So went outside and got some warm weather this weekend, and kind of heavy.
all right,
Sorry.
mate. Take it away.
All right. So here is the overview dashboard we were presenting in prior weeks and stuff. We've deployed to operator.livepeer.org. It's a new URL for NAP. This is just like the home page. So for instance, if you're not even logged in, you'll basically see this page as the home page. It shows all the pipelines and GPUs on the network. Can everybody hear me just fine? Great.
Yes, sir.
And big credit to Mike as well for helping here with this page. So we have a live job feed now that shows the models that are being processed, different live streams. This is just from the live video to video pipeline. We have, of course, I mentioned before, the success rate. This is, I believe, the metric for this. I'll get a definition for this soon, and Mike might be able to elaborate more because this comes directly off their API. But it's basically the for all the sessions that have been served in this time frame, It's the ones that were successful versus the ones that were rejected due to capacity issues or failure. And then these are the number of orchestrators we have. We've improved the performance of this page significantly. So if you do a full refresh, you can see it loads pretty quick. You can go to Developer API Manager, and we have an even better breakdown here. So you could click on just the live video to video pipeline or look at just LLM. And these are the new BYOC pipelines that Mike has been deploying on the network. And then some of our existing batch pipelines are also visible here too. You've got the capacity numbers. So with BYOC, the version to go live appears limited in reporting hardware. So we don't really have an actual capacity number or how many GPUs that there are, just the way that works. So this actually defaults to a 1 on those. However, the orchestrator count should be accurate. And so there's going to be a couple little tooltips or something we may need to add as we improve our data pipeline here. Most of this data comes from Daydream, which will be serving a lot of scope pipelines, but also comes from the network discovery jobs that the Cloud SP team is sending through. We've also, of course, got the API key integration still in here and usage and billing. I was able to integrate a usage panel here, but there's not really any usage data available, and it's coming off Metabase, which is rather centralized at the moment. So more to come on this as we move into Epic 3. Currently, the API keys are just for use with Scope because they're connecting to the Scope signer. I'm currently working on updating Payment House to do confidential client authorization to allow you to get API keys on behalf of users and create a transparent, seamless integration that would allow people to start using like a remote signer that could see the entire network, for example, and be able to pick up jobs from all orchestrators. And we'll update the docs there once we have that in place. We have the capacity planner. I think Chung might be able to go through this a little bit more detail. I'm not as familiar with all that we have here, but I'm sure there's an opportunity to integrate some of our data APIs in.
Yeah, so I can chip in here. This is basically a simple ticket system to replace the Discord messages. And it allows the community to respond to whoever is being provided. Like last week, we asked for SD Turbo GPUs. We actually can raise the tickets here, and then to keep track about how many people contributed and such. So this is just a small app added to the Napa to facilitate better the community collaboration. There's also a community hub there. It's a message forum to allow the user to do the technical question discussion related to network in general. So yeah, and in this release, we deliberately hide the marketplace and any plugin tooling away from the user at this stage, because early feedback we heard from the community is far too much, for MVP if we bring all this concept in. But for community, whoever is interested in this, once you sign up the account, give me your email, I will make that visible for you to do a preview. So it's all built as part of this whole framework. So it's very easy to configure, allow users to be in position to preview about this as well. But in the Epic 3, we will see more capabilities added through this way. And then we gradually open it up to the developers who are interested in extending these experiences. Yeah. And one last thing I want to highlight here, you may not see from the UI, is really the Epic 2, we enable two things. Number one, we enable, community-backed data warehouse to be generally accessible, by the whole community through a dashboard. This is just the dashboard, but you actually can access through the API as well. And in Epic 3, we want to promote, MCP-based agent accessibility to that. That's number one. Number two, you don't see it is behind this is, Napa is enabling scope workflow to be accessible without the gateway. We call it gatewayless. It's really using SDK and remote signer, which is much lighter weight of the deployment. We have community have suffered a lot in the past to complain about how difficult to deploy a gateway and maintain that. They take that major hurdle away, and the remote signer today can be deployed on a $25 a month, VM, and then be able to handle, tens of thousands, traffic for simply just, ticket signing and payment, on the chain. But without, you have to look after the media stack in terms of the, gateway traditionally we have to ask the user for. So that is something happening behind this as the magic you can think of. But I think this is we consider as one of the major simplification of the live peer network down this path. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to also point out just some of the other data that you can find on the overview page. And to answer Mike's question, you don't have to be logged in to see it. But yeah, I do see Doug's comment there. I think you might be pointing out the network section is pretty much empty. To take a look there. I think that's a bug to fix in UI. But you have like numbers of GPUs per pipeline, so that's really helpful to understand what capacity is available in the network just at a glance. The capacity numbers are a little bit delayed, but they are based on the usage data that's coming from Daydream. The pricing, probably we could open to feedback on these as well, but one way I see this working out is developers clicking a copy button and getting the exact slug of information they need to use the SDK or something like that, or getting a helpful link to a playground or example code. But yeah, so the video pipelines have FPS and the others are not obviously video, so they don't have that measurement, as well as minutes there. The numbers of GPU, this is another defect with the BYOC pipelines, and it just needs to be, I guess, pre-filled with the one until we get the Go Live Printer software updated with BYOC. That's why those are showing 0 at the moment. And then also you can get a service address here. This is still this is pretty accurate, I would say. I'm actually have an outage at the moment, so one of my addresses is missing. But for some other orchestrators, you'll have 2 service addresses. You can copy those, and also get an idea of what models are available out there. This is a little imprecise because it collapses everything into one orchestrator, so you don't necessarily know which service URI is serving that model. And these metrics are also a little inaccurate due to that. So I've got an update I'm planning to do soon to break this down better. And Mike has also been working on some changes to the data API to add more visibility into BYOC pipelines. But yeah, happy to help answer any questions anyone has about the data pipeline and app and where everything fits together. I do want to show briefly, if there's time, a bit of where I was going with Payment House. I'm thinking of, based on the feedback that we got from the
John,
community.
I'm just thinking, is it worth splitting them up into 2? Just having
yeah, we can make a different topic. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I think that would make the most sense, and then we can take some questions from everyone here. Chung, did you want to say anything? I just
I just sent out the link for Epic 3 roadmap feedback. It's in the GitHub. You can use the normal PR review process to have the inline comments there. To help us to move forward, with the feedback you get. Thank you.
Awesome. Any questions for the team here? Obviously, this has been a number of different contributors from across different teams have been working on this. It's been over a number of months as well. Any questions? I can see Adam typing. Maybe a question here is you've got Epic 3 lined up, and obviously this has been scoped throughout this process as it's moved forward. Is there what's the plan to get any sort of structured community feedback? Is it going to be on the forum? Is it going to be is there any community validation that you're looking for here from Epic 3?
Since Epic 3 hasn't been built, the proposal outline is there in the GitHub PR 265. If any feedback, you can just, because the breakdown into the different episodes is fairly straightforward and clear with the executive briefing and the vision statement and what people would expect, once this is implemented. So any sections you feel you gravitated to, leave your, your feedback and questions there. I think, myself and John and Josh and, Mike and Speedy will respond to that, whenever that is relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like as a structured feedback session could be useful, and maybe we can follow up on that to pressure test some of the assumptions that are going into NAP for Epic 3, just to hopefully speed things up.
I have heard some feedback from partners like Sean at, I think, Origin Stories. He was looking to use the SD Turbo model in the network and ran into some issues and wanted to make sure that we had it available. And I think Brad has it up, but on an older version. So it's another issue with older software, I think, not listing stuff here. However, on my note, it was deployed last week, and he could see that SD Turbo was available in the network, and that was a positive for him to have that visibility. So that was definitely some positive feedback we heard. And then I posted some links to endpoints there for the raw data if anyone wants to integrate this into other applications like a website or something separate from what we've done here. Makes the work that we have done more modular. And I think really our feedback could drive through the data pipeline with the Cloud SP. I know they're very busy and looking towards their next proposal, but we're trying to keep the implementation API centric and around the network as a product.
Nice job, guys. Excited to see this live. Chung just answered a question about Epic 3 feedback, but just general feedback on this dashboard. If people have ideas, suggestions, any structured place you want to receive that, or just drop it into a Discord channel.
In Discord channel, we have the Napa platform. If anything you have, please drop there. At the moment, that's probably the best place we can collect and then respond. There, yeah.
Mike, did you want to come in? Go for it.
No, I'm just waiting for my turn. That's all.
the premature unmute. Awesome. I think if John, did you want to wrap up before we move on?
Yeah, I think that's all I've got to add. Yeah, if anyone wants to post any GitHub issues, feel free to do that as well, or just post them in the Discord. Both places work fine. And then also you can reach out to Chung, myself, or Mike, anyone on the NAP project here.
Yeah, and also, I think you can also do a PR request to Napa as well if you have a strong, clear feedback in terms of what is missing, what is not working. For example, Rick did that last week. I liked it quite a lot. They basically put it out. Ask a feature configuration. Like a banner. If you look at the banner on the top, originally it's not there. And Rick said, that would be nice to have that to make people realize it's a beta. So that's a strong feedback and very clear. So he made a PR. So we implemented it before we actually make the live. Anything like that is also welcome as well. There's no really a strict form and template for you to give feedback. Anything you think of will add value to the community, let us know. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, guys, and yeah, awesome job on getting this over the line. I know it's been several months in the making, so great to see it go live. Fantastic.
We'll continue
John,
making some
John,
updates over the following weeks as we get updates, because it's just kind of over the line. It took some time with the data to get everything correct and architected properly. So there's certainly some bug fixes over the next week or so we can put in.
Fantastic, great. Let's move forward then. If you don't have any more questions for John and Chang, just check them in the chat. But I think now we have Mike and Speedy on stage, who are gonna be wrapping up the latest cloud SBE.
If we have time on Payment House, a quick presentation.
Can we come back to that, John?
Sure.
Just,
sure. Yeah.
Oh,
right. Sorry. The order.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Just keep to the order. Yeah.
All right. Let me share my screen here. Where is it? Can you guys see? You able to see?
Still loading.
I see it on my screen. Not sure why it's not loading.
Stream failed to start. Maybe try it again. Sometimes.
All right. Let me stop. Try it again. I always have permission problems sharing. I'm not sure if there's some role you need to have. John seems to do it pretty good.
No, it looks like it's not working. Speedy, do you wanna get does Speedy have the same one maybe? Or do you wanna
You trying to bring up the deck?
Yeah, can you bring up the deck?
Yeah, 1 second. Does that work?
Looks like it's loading. We're banned. We're not allowed to share screens in the water cooler.
Yeah. Brutal. No,
Yeah,
it
yours
failed
failed as well.
do you have a PDF of the presentation?
Let me
That
see if I
sometimes works.
can generate one quickly. No, it won't let me export to PDF.
Mike, Speedy, should we let Define go first maybe and then
Yeah, go ahead
like
and see if you can get that going.
Alrighty, man. Let's do that. Define, welcome up.
Hey guys, quick update on the Weave growth speed. Can you hear me? Okay. So the previous week we managed to pass the majority of the votes for the multisig to the foundation. So now the foundation controls 3 out of the 5 votes, which means that the financial assets of the Weave are owned and managed from the foundation. This was a response to the leave of Dane from the proposal, so that the stakeholders have the confidence that the proposal will continue to operate as intended. This is the first update. The second one is that we're doing some rebranding operations in my own personal business, former the bot business, and we're gonna update you regarding that in the next water cooler. And the third update is that next week we will have the initial version of the WIV incentives, we have received feedback that the amount dedicated from the inflation on the proposal isn't much really to attract builders and to provide for the perpetual hackathon. So we're implementing some solutions that we think will greatly repair the ability of the perpetual hackathon to deliver via alternative incentives along with the inflation incentives. And we are also having a repository where I'm working. I'm gonna post it here, which is basically the first version of the Weave tool. I'm building it as a Daydream workflow harness, so we are concentrating our efforts in a single tool that is the Daydream Scope tool, be the provider of um, open real-time video workflows, and the Weave tool will be able to accommodate the creation of these workflows. Now, after some discussions we had with Kiang, thank you for your feedback, Kiang. We understood that to be able to have generalized workflows being created by an agent is a very ambitious scope. So we're currently doing research to understand what kind of specialized real-time workflows are the most adequate for such agentic harness, such agentic engineering tasks, and we will adapt with to those. We also have the full list of the month one deliverables being posted on the LivePeer forum already, and till the end of this week, we will be able to do any changes to these deliverables. So whatever is posted at the end of this week is what it will be delivered by the end of the month. And we are at week 2 of month 1 of the WIF proposal.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, Define. Any questions for Define in the updates that he's given? Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I realize the proposal was passed last week, or in the last 2 weeks. So excited to see some momentum building over the next couple of weeks. Fantastic. If there's no questions, then let's come back to Mike and Speedy. There we go.
All right,
Fantastic.
John's going to share for me.
John's saving the day.
Yes, we appreciate John's help. So basically, I'm going to speak to what we actually, what our proposal was, and some of the things that we were, required from the community to deliver on. So this deck is really just to outline what it was that we set out to do, what we did deliver, and what's it going to look like, from here out. So next slide. So some links there if you want to, and I can share this deck. We have a project board where we've been tracking all of our work. I think you folks could watch every month as we were progressing through our slew of tickets. Obviously the on-chain proposal, and then the forum post. So we basically are just working on those documents. Go ahead, next slide. 5 major deliverables that we had promised to, for the community. Some core metrics, standardized network metrics, and that's coming from, the live peer gateways and orchestrators. Then the network test and verification signals. As folks know, we've been running, AI batch job testing for a while, at least a year now, testing out the pipelines, making sure they work. This was going to enhance that test suite and enable us to run tests for the live video to video infrastructure and validate orchestrators as well. Then number 3, the analytics and aggregation layer. So we were to build a pipeline that would take all of the data from multiple gateways, process it, and create metrics and analytics that could be served through APIs and dashboards. So, and that's what we did. We created a ETL pipeline that will process all of these raw events, and then also created an API layer and a dashboard that we have in Grafana that will allow you to look at our Grafana dashboard, but the API layer will allow other apps and consumers to use this data that we built. And then the last item there, number 5, is to continue to monitor and maintain this suite. So all of the code is open source, and I'll have all the links in the forum post that I'm going to be publishing shortly. But you can go in, look at all the source code, make changes, do whatever you need. If you wanted to host it and run it yourself, or if you wanted to build it and run it locally, you could do that as well. But we'll run infrastructure on the Cloud SPE's suite of infrastructure to continue to support this at least through a year. So we have all of the hardware and infrastructure in place now for production, and we also have a staging environment where we do our testing and validation. So next slide. Explicitly calling out these items, right? We have SLA APIs, but we weren't going to go into Go Live Peer and put those API calls into Go Live Peer for job selection. That's something that is planned as part of upcoming milestones. There were no more like job routing changes or protocol incentives or protocol changes whatsoever. So these are things that specifically we were going to do with our original proposal, but we had to trim it back. So those items were not part of this one. Just a reminder. Next. Okay, so as I mentioned, what is in this repo here? If you look at the GitHub Cloud SPE NAP Analytics, LivePeer NAP Analytics repo, you'll find in there extensive documentation. You can go and read. There's lots of readmes, a lot of documents in Markdown format that will give you all the gory details about how the pipeline works, what data we're collecting, what formats they come in, how they process through our entire pipeline, all the dashboards, the integrations. I think one thing to call out here is that we spent a significant amount of time in the last few months really looking at all of the event data that comes out of Go Live Peer that gets processed for jobs, payments, models, and pipelines. And this is something that Evan, which he's not here, but he spent a lot of work internally at LivePeer Inc. doing the same thing when he built their internal dashboards. And it's not easy. There's a lot of unstructured data. We spent a large amount of our time just trying to normalize it and understand what it means. And different orchestrators running different versions. Some have older software, some have newer software. There was just a lot of work spent on data analysis and validation, and even, to be honest, we're still doing a lot of that work. And I think you'll find there are going to be some questions as it relates to, well, what does this metric mean, or what does this API mean? Go ahead, Speedy. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just want to note that this isn't just, hey, look at this data that came out of the system from an event that was a status event for a particular stream, and figure out what does it mean. It also means correlating data across events, backfilling data where events differ in the payloads. So some payloads don't have information about the GPU that's being used. Some are missing the pipeline and you have to correlate them. and then taking that and understanding which of these demarcate the beginning of a session or a session that's unhealthy or the end of a session or when parameters change, and condensing that into a format that can be served up quickly that gives you all those signals in a compact view. So you can say, hey, show me when this session started, when it ended, when did it switch to another orchestrator, what types of swaps happened here, what are the various health signals related to this, because there are different types of signals and things that are occurring that could indicate that stream is becoming unhealthy. These calculations and roll-ups are a lot of nuanced semantics and work that happens. So it's not just a rote verbatim, hey, we took payloads coming off of event data from Go Live here, stuffed them into a table and served them up through an API. There's a lot of actual work being done on normalizing the data, enriching it, and understanding it semantically to expose really what is the operational behavior of the network and not what is just one event telling me about that particular orchestrator at this particular point in time.
Yep. So again, a lot of work, lots and lot. You can tell from Speedy's passion. He was the one doing a lot of it, and I mean, I was there helping too. But he's definitely been the main driver on that data analysis. Infrastructure wise, like multiple environments, production staging, multiple servers for multiple purposes. Really spent a lot of time on getting these things security tight so that when they're publicly available, that means they become targets on the internet. And immediately we saw, people hitting the servers, trying to beat them up, trying to connect to services. So having a secure deployment so that the reliability isn't been affected by malicious actors was important to us. And then other to note is there were millions and millions of events to process. Daydream is pumping out, something like 13 or 15 gigabytes worth of events every day. So this thing is there's a lot of events coming out of Daydream. Our cloud SPE testers do pump out quite a good amount of events, but we're in the hundreds of thousands, whereas Daydream's in the millions. So lots of event processing happening, which requires highly available, scalable infrastructure to ingest all of that stuff. And
Yeah,
from a
we spent a lot of time on that too, with performance tweaking to get the system to be able to consume that data very rapidly. I think we did a run this morning from the full backlog of data that's available from Daydream, which was somewhere near 30 million records. And if I'm not mistaken, Mike, I think it sucked it all down and processed it in about less than an hour.
Yep. So I mean, we had it was 8 hours, 10 hours when we started, but as we went through, definitely continued to optimize. And I think there's still some small things we can do along the line here, but um, full developer experience. So if you wanted to run this stuff locally and test it out for yourself, the documentation's out there for that. Lots of docs, API specs. As I mentioned, I'll send you all the links in a forum post. That's going to be our wrap up this afternoon once we get all of our, once this post goes out. So you'll have all the links to all the code, all the staging and production URLs, the APIs. You can try them out, look at the data yourself. Next slide, John. Again, just to reiterate some of the things that we did, Go Live Peer, we had some changes that were from our second proposal that never got merged and were severely behind in the software stack. So we had to bring those changes forward. We made significant updates to the BYOC stacks to allow BYOC network capabilities, selection logic, events. We have several PRs pending for that for folks that are looking to bring on their own workloads. There's definitely a lot of stuff in there that we need to merge. There were some security updates for the Kafka ingest process as well. As I mentioned, for the AI job tester, getting the video to video support in there, and also putting in support for BYOC where that was not in the AI job tester in the past. So if you go look at Explorer today for the performance board, you'll see video to video, you'll see BYOC, and you'll also see AI batch jobs getting tested now. We're doing it not only individually, but we're also testing the entire network to make sure that We can detect swaps, orchestrator swapping when one orchestrator is poorly performing, and when network failures occur, and if these types of things are happening on the network. So we'll have analytics data now showing that, in addition to individual org testing as well. And this is all done on chain live with the Cloud SPE gateway. So orcs are getting paid, even when we're doing our testing. So that's a good sign. And you can go look at the Cloud SPE gateways. We've been running for several years now, and we've paid over 12 ETH in fees. So we're definitely paying out, maybe not to the degree of a production workload system like Daydream or Studio, but we're definitely pumping out fees and making sure that our testing is going into the pockets of orchestrators running the hardware.
Yeah.
We originally did some work in the leaderboard serverless to run some of the APIs, but we found it to be, not really the right place. So we ended up not deploying the changes there, but we did find that there were some error handling and some performance updates that we could make. So we went ahead and updated the leaderboard serverless as well to get some more unit testing in place. And we just brought it up to snuff with the latest versions of software. So we did that as in addition. Next slide.
Yeah. The live video to video support too was expanded to support multi prompting. So we can add
Yes.
variable level of prompting from low through medium to high difficulty prompts so that we can test orchestrators across a variety of workloads in the tester. And I don't know if it's apparent at this point, but if you recall, the scope of the proposal that we first presented to the community was significantly scaled back based on the feedback. But as we went and worked through this, the complexity and scope of this problem was much greater than where we eventually landed with the community in the proposal. So we delivered a lot more than what we had signed up for.
Yeah, because we're perfectionists and we want to make sure the community is getting the value. We ended up just some of the things that we knew were out of scope. We just had to get them in. And I think one of the things that we're still just wrapping up in the next day or so is the support for BYOC and AI batch. We really wanted to get transcoding in there as well, but it ended up being too much. But again, I think analytics should cross all of the live peer networks workloads, and we were working our damnedest to get that stuff in. So the scope was for live video, but we ended up expanding it to BYOC. I think it's critical, especially for projects that I'm working on, like the Cloud SP is working on for Blue Claw. I think this is one of those things that we definitely think BYOC is one of those areas where significant growth opportunities lie there, and having that available in terms of metrics becomes critical. Um, the last part here in terms of workloads, I think, is NAP, the actual UI and dashboard that Chung and John have been showing. I spent a good amount of time with John helping him build out the actual calls to the APIs. Right, there was a lot of stuff going on in that Next.js app that they built, and I think getting a clean, highly scalable, highly performant calls to our API without wasting a lot of money and time, I think, was one of those things where you know it was important to us to make sure that it gave an example to other people in the community if they wanted to leverage our APIs. This NAP UI was one of those where we felt like it should be the model that shows how to do it, and how to do it in a performant way, and allow it to use this in ergonomic patterns that can be reproduced with proper caching and proper rate limiting, so you don't tax the servers. So that was one thing that John and I spent at least the last 2 weeks. He and I worked together many days, many hours on that one, and I just wanted to call it out. Next slide. Again, here's some links for the Grafana dashboards and the APIs that you can go read about what we have. I will send out these links so that you can click on them and follow through for yourself. But I just wanted to at least highlight that we had our production and staging environments ready and available for consumption. Next slide, John. Again, all 5 items were met. We delivered on everything, and it's all publicly available. We built it all in public, all public GitHub repos. all done through GitHub projects that were public. So folks, if you ever want to go back and look at all the tickets and what we did and when they were merged and moved, all available for you to consume. So we want to consider this job done. Next. And again, thanks everybody for trusting us, working with us, collaborating with us, and getting this off the ground from inception through proposal to actual delivery and launch. So I know Chung and Josh and Define, many others throughout the community have been instrumental in working with us and steering us as we continue, even though sometimes we could be a pain in the ass, making sure we keep the scope in alignment. There's always changes that come up, and being responsive to the team's requests and the community's need to adjust. And I think we've done a good job balancing that out, maybe to our own detriment. But I think at the end of the day, what we delivered was high quality. And I think we could all look back and say that this is definitely a project in which we're proud of the work we did. And I think it'll show as we continue down the road with this NAP platform and how it leverages this data and how we fine tune it and dial it in and get it right over the next few releases. But again, thanks everybody for working with us and trusting us to deliver. And I think that's it from a proposal perspective. I was going to demo the dashboard today, the Grafana dashboard, but since I can't share screens, I think we can we'll do that one on another water cooler. But folks, I'll share the forum post and you can take a look at it yourself. And if there's any feedback, feel free to jump into the NAP, the NAP data or NAP platform Discord chats and hit us up and we'll get in there and respond to you. But again, thank you all. Any questions, comments?
Mic drop, quite literally.
Boom, drop it.
It's done. Yeah, absolutely awesome. I know there's been having worked together, I know there's been pull in multiple directions over the last months, and the fact that you've delivered everything that was met is really phenomenal. Given the pulls in different directions. So yeah, huge shout out to both of you.
Hey, that's why we're here. We knew we always shoot for the stars. We're trying to deliver more than what the value is that we proposed. This one was definitely a bit bigger. We knew it was going to be big based on the initial proposal, but we thought we'd scaled it back enough to keep it within check. But as Speedy said, that sometimes these hidden costs come up, and it makes it just one of those surprises when you look back at, holy crap, how many hours did we work on this project? It was definitely a lot more than we anticipated. But again, I think we feel confident that what we delivered is high quality and will meet the needs going forward for all of the work that and the the consumers of this API.
Nice work, guys. I had a question just about all the data you've been collecting and looking at. So you've been collecting tons of test data, building APIs and dashboards against it, observing everything that's being performed on the network. Did anything jump out at you guys as some pattern you recognized in terms of what the network and all of our operators are doing really well? Certain data in the opposite direction that indicated, hey, everyone is performing pretty poorly and we're never going to succeed if this is the level of performance on X or Y, or any clear opportunities for testing and data collection that you didn't have visibility into that you actually thought would be really nice for consumers of the network?
It's hard to say. I think there's so much data. I mean, it's like a flood of information. I think there's a lot of opportunities to collect more. And I think that's one of the areas that, even though we consume so much, I feel like there's a lot more data that we need to collect. If it's infrastructure on the nodes themselves, I think the one thing that probably surprised me more than anything is the variance from each node operator, where again, some orchestrators are running software. I'm not sure where they get the software from, but it doesn't report hardware, whereas most orchestrators do report hardware. And I think that's one of those things where you don't anticipate that. We thought, this live video release is pretty recent. Like everyone that's running it should be running the same versions, or, plus or minus a couple dot releases of some sort. But it seems like there's still a wide variety of orcs and what their orcs are doing and what they're publishing in terms of the metrics data. So that was a big surprise to me. I don't know, Speedy, do you have any thoughts in there or insights, maybe some things that you learned about the network?
I mean, I wasn't terribly surprised by the information that we've aggregated at this point. Obviously the latency for startup time for AI video is a pain point. I'd love to see that a little bit shorter, but we all know that that's a factor of the state of open source and consumer hardware on the network, and of course why Daydream's been talking about getting larger GPU on the network for a trial basis and seeing what that looks like. Other than that, I think it's really just Mike pointed out some good things around the lumpiness of the data, whereas some reports coming back are not comprehensive, and for as Mike pointed out, the example of hardware data missing, and that kind of problem persists in a number of areas where we don't have a lot of correlation between data elements. So if a job is in flight and running, there's no GPU UUID attached to it. So you can't uniquely say, oh, this is the GPU that did the job. You have to go back to the orchestrator's network capabilities and do some sort of cross mapping, which, I mean, it's a fair assumption, but it's not as accurate necessarily as a one-to-one map. You have to make these implicit inferred assumptions when mapping through the data. And that really speaks to the last one problem we had, which is network capabilities data is like flooding the network. There's a ton of it. It's very verbose because of the gateways trying to connect and get a status of where the network stands, and that information is it's overwhelming to try to process that quickly and condense it so that we can align it with all the rest of the events in the network and roll up the statistics effectively. But I think in terms of the roll ups, what really matters is what we presented, and nothing there is terribly shocking to me. To the, I guess, the big question on this, um, and I think it's going to take some more time just to continue to look over it. We've illuminated so much here that even for me, who's looked over all this data and all these different angles, it's still a bit overwhelming to try to go through each one and come to a conclusion about where maybe there's some signal that is more interesting than the others. So I'd say overall at that level, it looks pretty much what I expect. And I'm actually happy that we now have that visibility. So, I mean, maybe not the cleanest, crispest answer to say, hey, here's a great example, something that's working really well or something that could dramatically be improved, because we've spent a lot of time smoothing out any of the issues that are in the lumpiness of the data, and the end result was something that looks cohesive and appropriate.
Cool. I know when the project started, there's always this debate about whether test streams and a testing framework could adequately describe the quality of services available on the network, versus the skeptical viewpoint was, hey, only the users of the network can determine that. Like they're going to send their real workflows and be paying the real price and observing the real performance. At this milestone that you're at, do you think that the data that's shown is a good representation of what the network is capable of, or do you lean more towards the view that only the users can truly determine that?
No, I think the testing definitely is a good indicator. I don't think the testing is significantly off. I do believe though that, looking at some of the Daydream workloads, that there's a lot of variance in terms of prompts and workflows that come through the system that could definitely lead to stressing a GPU harder than another one. So I think having the testing data and the real data gives you a really good understanding of what the network performance is. But I still feel like the fact that we've been blind to a lot of this information. Now that we have this data and this information, I think it's going to be one of those things where the network can get even better now, because when you have a baseline that you can go off of, I think you should be able to take these workflows and optimize them significantly better. So I think now having this data should result in better outcomes and more efficient. Like Speedy mentioned, you know the latency or the time to first frame, being able to see, wow, it takes a little longer than one would have anticipated to get that first bite of video after you launch your first AI stream. I think that's an area where definitely can improve. But again, I think both testing and real workloads are pretty good. I think they're not too far apart, but there's definitely still some wide variance there.
Yeah, and I would say it's probably still far at this stage because from the looks of the prompts that are being put through on both sides, I wouldn't say I see extremely complicated prompts that are different from what we're pushing through as medium to high. I'd say Daydream's pushing it further than our tester. And this issue may become clearer and crisper once we collect enough data to be able to say, what are the most complex prompts being put through the system that we could then put into the tester. So in effect, what your end result is, user demand would improve the tester. And if it's stayed in sync and one's constantly reviewing that data and updating the tester's prompt library, then these two things will always be in sync with one another, and there won't be a difference between the two. But as you can see here from what we're saying, the user input's going to drive that testing data forward, so that's a clear signal of where are difficult prompts, where are the prompts that are being used in the real world that allow us to understand performance of the network, rather than some fabricated prompt that we came up with based on just trying to get the tester to do some variations.
Great. Thanks, guys.
I also note, I mean, just thinking about your other question about, what's interesting here. I think that is interesting is the evolution of the scoring here, because before the tester would just send out a job, measure FPS and latency, and give you a score. And as we all know, we didn't have great scores coming out. They were all on the lower end of the range. They weren't very well normalized. And that was when we first put out this version of live video testing in October as a POC, really. Now, as Mike was mentioning, our goal would be ideally to move all the Explorer performance metrics off of these leaderboard serverless APIs, which were using data that the tester was reporting, to dropping altogether the tester from reporting data and use the analytics pipeline, which is just looking at streams on the network and measuring all these different quality and health signals from prompt to first frame to the traditional ones like latency, to how many times is there an error, is there a swap happening. There are a lot of different signals now that roll up into what we're calling the SLA score, and you get a more robust assessment of the capability and power of each individual orchestrator setup. And to me, that is probably the more interesting area overall of all this work, because it is the culmination of all the effort. To be able to take all these different data points and roll them up into one concrete view that says, here's how orchestrator performs. And you can then slice that down by the source of the data, whether it's Daydream or a specific gateway on the Daydream network. You can look at it by model, pipeline, GPU. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to slice it, so you can really structure out, how to model the network performance and find ways to find your optimal path through the network. And that wasn't possible before with the data that the tester was publishing, and is entirely now there because of all these signals. And these signals are not just internal signals that we then use calculated memory and then store one final value in the table and serve it. all these signals are put into different stages of the database. So even though we serve an SLA that rolls up all this information into one, crisp number, we can slice and dice down deep into what that means across the different boundaries. And that was kind of critical in our design of the analytics model, where we have raw data, we ingest it, and we put it through various phases as it's being cleaned, enriched, and various algebraic approaches are being applied to it to come up with a final data that allows you to look at it by cohort and essentially get a very clean view of data from top to bottom. I think that to me is the most compelling piece of all of this, and if I were to distill it down to one thing.
All right. Any other comments, questions?
I had one question. I just want to point out, like, the accuracy has gotten better with the usage data that we're getting from Daydream. But I think you are still getting data directly from Daydream's databases, right? Like your ETL pulling the data in. What does it look like if we add other platforms to the network and they start, wanting to, or we want to get their usage data into the network product? Is that still like a Kafka pipeline, or do we have a roadmap for that yet?
Yeah,
So
that's. Go ahead, Speedy.
the ingest is only reading Kafka events. We're not reading any database on the Daydream side. So we're pulling in just events as Go Live Peer publishes them, and the Daydream gateways are collecting that data for their deployments and then basically mirroring over the events they have collected from the network over to us, and we're processing them. That's for that side of it. So to bring in more data is really has to meet that standard of it is following the event formats and the payloads and the event types. Otherwise, it's going to get kicked out. We have a quality gate in the very front of the process where we pull in the raw events, we dedupe them to make sure we're not processing things twice that could inflate numbers, and then we kick out any events that don't meet a whitelist of known event types that Go Live Peer produces. And in this, for example, Daydream does have at a scope level, the scope app, for example, and Daydream app do have events that they do report that are not inside that core Go Live Peer whitelist, and we just don't process them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that
But I
reflects
think
those.
the roadmap, though, is as NAP expands, there was one of the things that we had in our original proposal was, making it so that it could be a decentralized ingest in which anyone could publish any events from any app to our ingest pipeline, and we'd be able to just take them in. But I think the fact is, since Kafka and Go Live Peer gateways were the infrastructure that was in place already, and one of the areas to scale back the cost was to just leverage that. So we didn't have to build anything new for this decentralized approach, and that's why we ended up doing the Kafka and Go Live Peer gateway approach. But obviously, with the Python SDK that you and Josh are working on, this is an area where we definitely need insight there, especially as we look to take on more data from SDK developers. Like, it would be a shame not to have that data flowing through the network as well, especially if we plan to get those workloads into our ingest pipeline. So we definitely want that data, and we want to make sure that we're representative of the network. Even though transcoding is another area where we aren't collecting that data, but it should come through. We have some work that we're planning on doing to get those events from transcoding in. So maybe at some point we'll get that as well. But these are all great suggestions, and I think some of the things that we need to definitely work with Chung and the team as we start to look at potential, improvements and enhancements going forward.
Yeah, and any changes are going to have to um, th- we have to be careful how we make the changes because there are clear semantics to events and event, I'm going to call them subtypes. So for example, the system will publish an event saying the gateway received a stream request. A runner will send out saying it has processed a first segment of that request. And the gateway will say, hey, I've received the segment. So these are all edges along the path of a working session. And if that kind of contract isn't followed, then it breaks the semantics of how are we detecting these edges and understanding where in the life cycle of a session is a given request or stream. And that's just speaking to streaming requests. BYOCs, a non-streaming BYOC is a different story. Batch AI is a different story. So all these different workflows that can happen on the network have different material signals that are incorporated into our solution that turns it into a more common understanding of what is a session, how did it start, where did it fail, what is the state of it, how long has it been running, when did things change in that request. So if we do want to support more types of workloads, they have to either adhere to these semantics or the semantics have to change to support some more flexibility and therefore the analytics pipeline as well.
Yeah, it's looking good. I think we're starting to see that with the BYOC pipelines pulled in because those have different input and output types. So
Yeah,
FPS, for example.
we're working on. We have a couple of releases actually pending to go out, today or tomorrow to hopefully close the loop on BYOC. But we're definitely that was not anticipated. It was definitely something we need to add, and we wanted to get in there quickly. So more to come.
Whack-a-mole.
All right. Any other questions, comments? We definitely have taken up a good chunk of time here. So we thank you for listening to us, especially as we go into all these details. So, but first and foremost, thanks again to everybody for putting their trust in us, giving us our third proposal, which I think we're the only SPE at this point that has 3. Maybe AI SPE had 3. So we got to get one more in so we can call ourselves the number 1 SPE. That's serious. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
That
thank you, everybody.
That was going to be my question, which is what comes next. But I think we'll save that for next time.
Yeah, I think it's unknown right now. I think what I can say, just generally speaking, for the last 10 seconds here is, we, like everyone else on the network, look at what is the thing that LivePeer needs the most, and I think demand is an area where everyone's clamoring for it, and I think Orchestrator's been asking for it, and we really think we're in a position to do a lot of demand driving. I think Blue Claw is one use case we have started to do, and we have others that are on the way. So I think we definitely are going to be huge demand focus over the next few months here to really see if we can 100x the network in terms of fees.
I'm sure music to everyone's ears, and yeah, super excited to hear more about Blue Claw in the coming weeks. I know it's already very much in motion, which is super exciting.
Yep. And more. That's just one of them. We got several others in the pipeline. So we definitely want demand. And I know everyone has been looking for it. So stay tuned. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, PD. Awesome. I think that's pretty much it. That I have a personal name and topic that I'll end with. If anyone else has one, I think probably worth punting to next week, or feel free to stay on after. I'm just gonna do a very quick name and topic on the network engineering SP that has been in discussion over the last couple of weeks, and yeah, really wanted to get this to a decision of how we proceed. Great. Can everyone see my screen just very quickly?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
Yep.
So this has been in discussion for the last couple of weeks. the main problem statement that we went in with is that the SPE process is too heavy for smaller engineering work. So as we've gone over this problem multiple times, to create an SPE takes many months of work. To write the full SPE proposals, you have to have an on-chain vote, and then work often doesn't get done, or it gets bloated with longer timelines than are necessary, right? And an SPE that might be only a couple of weeks can sometimes bloat into a couple of months or longer. And obviously, as the velocity of writing code becomes faster, MVPs become quicker to build, this gap is getting bigger. So the conclusion was, in the series of sessions that I ran and Ben ran, was we need a faster funding mechanism for community initiatives. And the next step is really scoping work faster to make more community-driven initiatives and better connected to real needs of the network. This is faster validation, it's enabling demand, and it's not just originated within Lightbit Inc. or the foundation, that it's also originated within the community and co-created from there. So we've been working towards a potential solution, and one of the ideas that has come up is thinking around the foundation as being a sort of steward of this process, the community validating, and then contributors from the community shipping. So this is working together in this fast, transparent process, empowering community contributors to scope and ship RFPs. So we'd have the technical director from the foundation, Rick, everyone knows, been a long-time orchestrator, would be really responsible for scoping RFPs, obviously with the contributors raising these ideas, selecting teams, stewarding milestones and payouts, and that would be from the broader foundation team. Then there'd be a series of supervisors or reviewers. So this is from community nomination, and these sort of represent community interests. They supervise the foundation decision points, but the point is that we don't have that long-term blocker that everything has to be gone to put towards a community vote. Now, obviously, the orchestrator community still needs to be involved, and they can give feedback on the RFPs and give guidance on team selection. But then what's the key differentiator to the SPE process is that it doesn't need to have full consensus and majority vote. It can be much faster with the whole process. So there were a couple of RFPs that have been and suggestions that have been in the pipeline. Things like the Explorer, which can have some more structured funding. The Payment Clearinghouse, as an example, integrating developer interfaces and styling. There were discussions of X402 or open router integrations, things to do with container schema abstractions, but BYOC. And these, rather than going through a large SPE process, these can be much shorter scoped, between 1 to 4 weeks of work, and they can be done with this faster RFP process. Now, one thing to highlight is that this SPE would focus on demand enablement rather than demand generation. We were discussing how actually there are two modes of funding here. One is thinking around more public goods and network engineering that enables demand. The other thinking around private goods, driving demand on the network through active demand efforts. This SPE would purely be focused on network engineering itself. So this is the infra, the tooling, and network work, protocol work. Obviously, we have the protocol SPE. It would be more focused on the network side. And then keeping the scope tight means that we can really move fast and prove that the model works. Now, there are still open questions to be ironed out with a pre-proposal. This is thinking like governance versus speed. How much do you delegate governance to this SPE versus having relying on a pure community validation? Or if we do have community validation, what are the best checkpoints and mechanisms to get that? What are the highest priority RFPs? What is the best budget size for a 3-month trial, as an example? And how are these supervisors elected to represent the community? A lot to iron out. But my primary question is, before we move any further, I wanted to just get a read from this group whether we think this is a good idea to move forward with, or actually, i.e., having a public RFP process and a sort of lightweight funding mechanism, i.e., some sort of network engineering SPE, would drive faster network improvements, enable demand? Or is this adding just another layer of complexity and we should be simply pushing for a faster SPE process and to rely on that mechanism? So as I've tried to be quite neutral throughout, the main thing is, do we put this to a pre-proposal? And yeah, I just wanted to end there. Maybe to kick things off, are there any clarifying questions that people have around the initiative? I realize this is graveyard shift at back end of the water cooler.
Have any major questions, but I have a quick reaction. I mean, I think a core development team that is funded that focused on the core network and client engineering is a very good idea. Right now, do they need a super formal RFP process that's already predefined for every contribution that anyone makes towards that? I think that's debatable, right? I think if they have a team that's focused executing on a roadmap with solid leadership, and they are constantly communicating what's on the roadmap and what needs to get done, and releasing funding to that and coming back for pools of funding based on the progress they demonstrated. That's probably a positive, not too different than the AI SPE used to look during its existence, or the cloud SPE has been executing in progress right now.
Right, so focusing more on funding individual contributors within a group, as the ISP was funded as an example, rather than having breaking up funding and trying to have an RFP process to have multiple contributors or contributing teams and to route funding to those teams.
Yeah, I think if they want to run an RFP process for a big project or something, there's multiple bidders for it, like, so be it. I just don't think every roadmap item requires that necessarily.
Yeah, great feedback. Thanks, Doug. Any other comments, questions?
So sorry, my kids got home and they're practicing instruments, so it's super loud. So I think the question is really about RFPs versus SPEs. Is that right? Essentially,
Yeah, exactly. Do we break down the SP process to have a faster funding mechanism? I've honed in on RFPs. We could also have bounties, for instance, or have a funding a tranche of funding that is released in an SPE, and then for that group, as Doug said, to decide how they get work done, whether that's through an RFP process for some projects and bounties for others. Yeah, basically having the freedom.
yeah, I think I'm I'm with Doug and Peter on this. I mean, it's really like, why not both? I mean, the size of it's going to dictate what goes where. I mean, obviously, having something faster and lighter than the SPE process would be useful for smaller value items. Um, but once you start getting to larger items, we start having all kinds of complexities. I mean, from the experience of the cloud SPE, I think there's a lot of challenges around the nature and scope of work that needs to be done versus the appetite for funding them. And if we open up for RFPs, people outside the community are going to come in seeing an opportunity to drive revenue towards their organization, and they might pitch something that is very large, bloated, and difficult to assess the quality outcomes of it. So neither approach necessarily gets away from getting entangled in these issues. And I think that's, to me, is the crux of it. Like, you want to attract more people to live here to do engineering. We have a treasury. I feel we could utilize it a little bit more to effectively bring more blood to the engineering aspects of the project. But it needs to be done in a way that's not only going to be fair in the contribution level, but also help to limit people from just bringing in slop and dumping it in and saying, "Hey, I delivered it," and all they really did is, attach it to OpenClaw and then gave us, 10,000 lines of code that's for doing something that could have been done in 500. And now we're left with a large maintenance cost that accrues to the project, and only makes matters worse. So unfortunately, there's not a clean view on my side on this, other than, yeah, I'd like to see how we can attract more people to the community to develop, and opening up RFPs probably would do that rather than the SPE process, which is more self-motivated by people who are wanting to come forward and deliver work and get paid for it that are within this community.
Yeah, really, really great feedback. I mean, the obvious, I think, success story with the RFP process has been the Red Guild team and the Explorer updates, which I think have been consistently improving. And yeah, the question is whether there is that sort of gateway through to becoming a builder on the network by an RFP process rather than, I was speaking about this with Rick, and one of the feedbacks on the bounty program is that you do just get, a lot of slop and a huge amount of overhead with reviewing code. And yeah, we spoke last week, and it was the conclusion that the RFP process would be slightly better to have larger projects, but not quite as large as, let's say, a full-blown, multi-month SPE.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think the bounties are sufficiently sized to be attractive for somebody to try to collect and go after them, because the amount of effort it takes, you'd want to do multiple in order to warrant the uptime that is needed to onboard and understand the issue, work on them, and in the live peer ecosystem in general. If you're not already familiar enough with it to be able to move quickly through it and get your mileage out of it for the hours you spend on it. But on the flip side, of course, the RFP has to be large to attract enough momentum. And so your dollar spend is not going to be as you're not going to get as much mileage out of the dollars. But frankly, I think it's a better outcome, because even if you have to pay more to get less, a group that's going to take the time to go through an RFP, if it's an efficient process, is going to follow through ideally with something of more substance and value, even if it's not, every dollar turns into $2. It's certainly not going to be in the opposite direction where, you end up losing money. I think you're going to get probably a higher quality output from it. But, the governance, the quality gates are really what are going to determine how effective that spend is for the community.
I don't know where you guys found the Raid Guild and EC Wireless, but having looked at that Explorer work myself, that was a big, big, big chunk of work. And the fact that these guys came in and did such a good job is definitely a testament to the RFP process. So You know, however you did that, do it again. That would be awesome if you can replicate that in other projects. You know, especially where we need a lot of TLC on some of the legacy stuff and go live peer. If you can replicate what you did on the Explorer, man, that was really good.
Yeah, I second that. I think that that's a exact example of what I'm saying, right? You have a team really is. I mean, I don't know if you feel like it was expensive. I think some people voiced they thought it was expensive, but the value that came out of it is the Explorer is fast. There are all these bugs are gone, and that presentation outwards to people who are not caring about the treasury and the mechanics of live peer and the technicals and are just coming here to see what live peer is about, it shows off way better, and the return on that is much higher. And I don't
Yep.
think I don't think bounties are going to do that because, $100 here, $200 there, $1,000 there is not going to attract somebody who's going to want to take on enough scope that's going to move the needle for the community. It's just my 2 cents.
Well, I think the thing that is not that is overlooked in that raid gill is somebody knew the actual details behind the Explorer work, and someone knew the skill set needed to do that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rick was the one that actually interviewed those folks and came to the conclusion that they'd be able to meet the needs of that project. So I think that's where we need that level of, inspection and verification before greenlighting a project like that. So I think that is where the true value came from.
Yeah, that might
Push.
speak to the fund, the collective that is doing that, right? Is it the foundation? Does the foundation have the right funding to make sure that those things are not only put out, but that whoever is being vetted and whoever gets approved, whoever works on the projects are following standards and are getting the
Yep.
guidance they need to understand the nuances of how live peer works, where they need to get going, what the quality gates are for their deliverables. And we can't assume we're just going to open an RFP and they're going to return something and we can just incorporate it. It needs to be reviewed. Someone has
Yep.
to be funded to supplement that process. It's not going to be a simple matter of just opening a process and solve these problems. We need an internal community as well to help do that. And people are busy. And the price of live peer is not going the direction everyone would like to go, but in generally markets. But that makes it tough for people to put in their spare time to support that kind of thing with a high quality, high interest.
Yep.
For sure. I mean, yeah, Rick was instrumental in that process, but actually, Ben was also involved from a talent perspective. Reaching out, and then my dad was heavily involved in keeping them on track and setting up the accountability framework to ship it. So yeah, I mean, that came out of the transformation SPE, right? And that was an RFP that was there. And I think the principle that we're using with this is to have the exact same the exact same mechanism, right? To unlock funding with the SPE and then to route it to high value, high impact contributors who can really lead and own things. I think that's something with Elliot and the Raid Guild team is, they're really owning it, doing things proactively, solving problems proactively, talking with other contributors. So
Yep.
yeah, it would be to try and find those leaders to lead RFPs, and that would be a key part of the foundation contribution. Would be to unlock that funding, and then obviously work with the community to scope RFPs and problems. But then sometimes once they're scoped, actually it's worth looking outside as well to find new talent that can come into the community and contribute like Red Guild have.
Yeah, and you have to be realistic. Like, we're not gonna, if you launch RP, we're not gonna get new blood in here that's gonna stick around and be loving this stuff right off the bat and be looking over all the rocks that they can overturn and help the community outside the scope. They're most likely going to be professional organizations, that are looking for work to do to bring in revenue, and they're detached in terms of their interest to the actual project, and that's fine. But if they can come in and move the ball forward and increase value, that creates momentum that eventually over time, the value of live peer is obvious, the quality of the solution is obvious, and that's going to bring in people who are also not coming in just for RFP, but coming in because they see something interesting happening, they see the momentum, and then they will ensuingly stick around. And it won't just be these Merck organizations looking for the next RFP that they can fulfill as a contractor. Anyway, my 2 cents.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Speedy. John, you're up on stage and you said RFP process allows an ongoing network engineering team to define and validate more strict requirements for the work items so that architecture is agreed on where needed. Do you want to quickly put flesh on the bones, or?
Sure. Yeah, just mostly agreeing with what everyone else said there. I think if you have a network engineering team that's architecturally minded and network focused, they can help guide contributions through an RFP review process from contributors throughout a wider ecosystem of developers, right? So I think that's kind of what we've been talking about. It's kind of how I see it working, and helping avoid that scope creep plus AI slop issue. Obviously, code reviews and code reviewer groups have been a challenge in the past, but I think a network engineering team could really help support that role in development and contributions.
Awesome. I'm conscious of time. It's pretty late for some folks. Before everyone goes and we come to wins of the week, can everyone just reply to this pseudo poll that I'm putting forward? There's yes for a pre-proposal, and no. This is don't quote me on this. This is not governance 101. But I just wanted to get some sentiment from this group here. So if you can just quickly respond, everyone who's been a part of this discussion, by clicking one of the two options, that would be great. Okay, awesome. Then the final thing to come to, I mean, just before any other points on that, I think that was pretty much it. Okay, fantastic. Then final thing this week is wins of the week. This is where we give a shout out to anyone else in the ecosystem who's done some awesome work over the past week, or who you just want to show some appreciation for. So I don't know, we don't have many people here, but I will start by saying a big shout out to Mike and Speedy for getting the Cloud SP wrapped up. It's always a pleasure to work with you, and actually also to John and Chung for getting the NAP demo live. So super exciting week. We've got my dad also saying kudos to Cloud and the NAP team for delivering awesome work.
I'd like to say kudos to Mike and Speedy as well for their work on the data pipeline and API. Mike has been really helpful over the past week or two, even before then, throughout this whole project to get the specifications right. And as I mentioned earlier, it was a bit above and beyond their initial scope. But I think the work that we did helped validate and improve their product, and I'm very happy to collaborate and see the results there on NAP.
Awesome. And one from Mike here. Shout out to Rick, forever in our hearts, for continuing the reviews of any of my non-stop Go Live Peer BYOC changes. Does the man sleep? No, is the answer.
And shout out to Josh too for working on the SDK and scope. We've yet to see that here demoed in the water cooler, but I think it'll be coming soon. He's put a lot of work into enabling scope with the SDK, so that'll be really exciting.
And a shout out to John for being patient and working with me on that. I think everyone on the NAP sync deserves deserves a medal for getting over the line and completing all the milestones. Has been awesome. A shout out from my dad as well to the Explorer and Cloud teams who have set it a new standard for how work must be done in the SPEs. Completely agree. I mean, I think Mike and Speedy, you've been doing this for years now, and yeah, it's been really impressive. Awesome. Then I think we will wrap it up there. Thank you everyone for joining, and yeah, look forward to catching you in Discord, and we'll see you next Monday.